Chapter 2. Lily. I paid you to tell me what she was up to. Mr. Anderson was starting to resemble a pufferfish. His already bloated cheeks bulged in an indignant shade of red. No. I pulled out his contract and pointed to the sections I'd highlighted. You hired me to figure out where she was going. Never once did you ask the activity. He picked up the contract, flipping through the pages and slapping them on my desk as he finished. It was shocking that he didn't rip 'em. After a little further arguing and me pointing out a few more highlights, he unhappily paid for my services and left. I leaned back in my chair and chuckled to myself. Hope you enjoy the show. It was just too bad I wouldn't get to see the look on his face when he found his daughter singing on stage instead of whatever he thought she was up to. The elevator dinged and my disgruntled client kept grumbling in the hallway. Know-it-all little bitch. He'd slammed my door, and I got up to make sure he hadn't busted the glass panel. After so many years behind it, I could easily read strictly confidential investigations backwards through the frosted glass. He called me a few more choice phrases as he left the building, and I laughed again. Seeing as he didn't realize I could still hear him, I couldn't hold it against him. I glanced at the card transaction on my phone. Hell, as long as he paid me, he could call me anything he wanted. The phone vibrated in my hand, and Funky Town blared through the speakers. I blinked in disbelief, watching my adoptive sire's face light up the caller ID. It kept ringing, the song's chorus becoming more insistent with each repetition. On the third time around, I had to accept this wasn't an ass dial. Shite! I swiped my thumb to answer. Ivan? Hey, kid. My old boss's distressed accent leaked through the line. His was far harsher than my own, given that it was Old Russian. He sounded unusually exasperated. You busy? Little hairs danced on the back of my neck. I debated lying, but it was Ivan after all. I swallowed my pride. Nope, just finished with my latest client. Why? He hesitated. We're having issues in your area. What kind of issues? I locked the door and turned off my light. No reason to invite some new client in. People have been turning up in the ER with vampire blood in their noses. God damn it! I leaned my forehead against the cool glass. Why didn't I just lie and say I was busy? Yeah, not my favorite news either, kid. Luckily, no one's died. The implied yet hung between us. I ran a hand down my face and tried to keep my tone level. Those fucking cabbages just don't get it, do they? Doubt it. I went to my desk, pulling open my drawer for notepads. Police involved yet? Not very. There's one concrete attack, but no ID yet. What do you call that area again? The slummy one? Rockwood's not that bad. Okay, it was. Most of my casework was a partial result of something from Rockwood. I scrawled out some tester squiggles from my third pen before I continued. Do you have the name of the other victims? Ivan gave me a list of 7 people, 4 men and 3 women, judging solely by their names. I noted their birthdays, and anything else he could tell me, which wasn't a lot. How'd you find out about them? They were dropped off in different ERs, high as kites and hard to restrain. Considering what was coursing through their bodies, that was probably an understatement. Shit. If that kept up, the human population would be onto us within a week. You got the police names on ya? I wrote Detective James Harper's name next to Gabriel Collins, drawing a line between them and the victims to keep the groups separate. And what makes you think the deaths connected other than fang marks? They found vampire blood in his nose during the autopsy. Yeah, that sealed it. And why does she want me? Ivan paused, for far too long. Out with it, boss. Riti never calls me unless there is a unique need. Why not just send you or Cyrus? I hated arguing with him, but there was no way I could let Riti land me with another shit gig. Spill. The hospital records, he grumbled slowly. What about him? I twirled my hand, waiting for him to get on with it. Anna signed off on a number of them. What? I stuffed a curse back into my mouth. Of course, that little maggot was involved. This was just one more time the Queen could stick it to me. It's been 40 years. Is she really that petty? We both know that's not the only reason to send you. True. There was a certain rationale for sending me. The Queen and I may not be BFFs or whatever, but I could see her reasoning. Kid. I chewed on the idea of hanging up before speaking. It'll cost ya. Ivan sighed. How much? I stated the hourly rate and the down payment, plus expenses. And if it takes a month? Then you're paying me for a month. I could make more than that trying to catch some cheating spouse. Okay, that was a lie, but in the time this case would take, I'd be too busy to take on new ones. Ivan was lucky he'd caught me in a slow spot. Otherwise, I would have demanded the court reimburse my lost casework too. He grumbled Russian obscenities under his breath. I can't hear you, boss. Fine, he said a little louder. You know she'll bite my head off for this. Tell her I forced your hand. I let my tone soften a bit. She's always ready to blame me. With that, we said goodbye and hung up. I changed my voicemail and taped a message over the logo on my door. Both referred any potential new client to Peter Andrews, another local PI 2 blocks down. He did the same for me when he took any time away or when his caseload was too heavy. Even if I hadn't agreed to an amount to cover my bills with one case, I still would have dropped to just the one. If these idiots kept dealing in the area, they would expose the vampire population of Portland. I might not be living at court anymore, but I still didn't need the cops on higher alert. I grabbed my coat and helmet, locking the door on my way out. I set up shop in my living room, my massive blonde hair tied in a big bun to keep it out of my face. I wasn't worried about my roommates interfering. They knew the drill when I worked from home. Plus, hours of research were much easier with a glass of whiskey on my couch than in my cramped uptown office. Granted, using my PI license gave me access to some pretty cool tools on that computer, but using those would also risk drawing attention to myself. Police could easily see when I ran a background check or any other information for work. I needed to keep my human alias intact. So, I did things the slow way, starting with Googling the crime stats in my city. It was easy enough to find a pie chart from the city, outlining various types of crime from drugs, violence, and other nonsense. The last slice was labeled for known vampire crimes. That part of the pie chart showed 11%. Whoa, that was high. I mean, it was probably lower than the actual number since we tended to clean up our own messes. However, humans usually had that number in the area of 6%. I'd seen 8 once. Now it was almost double the normal figure. I leaned against my couch and sipped my drink, contemplating how that may affect my work. If the percentage was already high, then the police may already be on high alert, as it was. That would mean a lot more tiptoeing around the humans to avoid being noticed. I swirled more whiskey through my mouth before putting the glass down to add the statistics to my notes for future reference. All right, I cracked my neck like I was going into battle. Let's check Facebook. Was I just too damn old to get it? Back in my day, kids ran around outside, damn it. Okay, back in my day, kids did farm work, but still, why the hell did everyone feel the need to share everything online? Whatever happened to talking? Yep, definitely showing my age. Adrian St. Clair had his account set to private, so I wrote a question mark next to his name. Sadly, his profile photo didn't give me any hints about his lifestyle. It was just a very close-cropped selfie. It made him look more like a shadow than a man. I made what little notes I could about his appearance, since it was all I was getting. White, probably thin, hooked nose, and dark hair. Then I moved through the rest of my list. 2 of the profiles yielded very little, but at least there weren't any food photos. Most of the victims were taking photos at parties with their homeboys or girlfriends. Various language and slang, along with their photos, told me they probably were in high-risk areas. Easy pickings if you were a vampire trying to juice the population without getting noticed. I made my notes about each of their appearances, including a party that both of them had on their calendar for tomorrow, address included. Thoughtful of them. 4 of the profiles made me wish I could puke. They were either up to their eyeballs in debt or in a completely different social circle from the others. There was a man with an exorbitant number of photos of him and his Corvette, along with various upgrades he'd made to the machine. Each picture he posed, trying to look sexy, I think. He looked silly to me, but most people trying to look hot didn't seem to accomplish it. There was even one where he was kissing the hood of his car. Don't get me wrong, I loved my motorcycle, and it had been some time since I'd gotten some action. Still, making out with my bike was not high on my to-do list. I rolled my eyes and jotted my notes before moving on. I didn't see any links between him and the other victims. I even spent an hour scrolling through their friends lists, but there was nobody in common. Nothing so far, but if I was this high class, I certainly wouldn't shout about my ghetto friends either. And society thought they got rid of the class system, I snorted. One of the girls was my worst nightmare. This girl and her friend's drama filled the screen, various declarations of rage and excitement over petty things. Bitch, he was mine first. Those posts were only split up by photos of the girl and every meal she ever ate. Scones. Why the hell do people insist on photographing their food? I grumbled and scrolled through a little faster. Granted, my particular meal plan may have influenced my preferences, but I just didn't see the bloody appeal. Okay, so I had 1 unknown, 2 clearly lower class, and 4 in upper middle class or better. A shared party plan, but no other obvious friendships between them. I couldn't call that result shocking. Multiple choices with no big obvious connection could be the result of multiple culprits or just very careful planning to hide the crime. Still, weird that the rich kids were showing up in the hospital more than the kids from Rockwood. I'd have to look into that. Next were the 2 cops, just to see who I might need to steer clear of. Gabriel Collins rose in my estimation when I couldn't find a profile for him, not even a private one. Though that also annoyed me a bit, since it meant he could run into me at any time, and I wouldn't know it. Hopefully his partner would prove more social. I'd crossed paths with the police more than once, mostly after one of my clients got violent with their spouses or my investigation turned up a crime I had to report. It didn't happen often, but it wasn't unheard of in my line of work. I'd cooperate, hand over my case notes, and make myself as forgettable as possible. The humans still didn't know how to properly kill us, and I was not interested in lining up as the first guinea pig, thank you. James Harper did not disappoint. It took a few wrong clicks, but I found one man in Portland old enough to be the right guy. His profile was set to private, but his picture was clear. 2 men. One was beefy and dark, built like a stereotypical biker with a long, dark Santa-style beard. His head was either shaved or bald, but based on that beard, I was thinking the former. His black eyes twinkled with merriment. A scruffy man had his arm around the beefy one's shoulders, while holding a brown bottle up in cheers. The lean one was a little taller than his friend, but only an inch or two. His arms showed muscle, but it wasn't thick. Maybe a runner? His dark hair curled around his ears and was more than a little messy. It didn't look intentional or gelled, but it also didn't take away from his features. His chin was flecked with the same midnight-colored hair, just a little longer than 5 o'clock shadow. It was the scruffy one's expression that grabbed me. He had his camera smile on as he raised his beer, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were more determined than happy, and I couldn't quite suss out the color. Maybe blue? I leaned away and thought. Well, one of these was probably Harper. If I was lucky, the other would be his partner. As I began noting their appearances, the back of the couch sagged behind me. He's not bad. I smiled up at Alex, not bothering to ask which one he meant. It wasn't like it mattered. You better watch Darren doesn't hear you say that. He was leaning against the back of the couch, using his arms to support him. He rolled his obsidian eyes. Please, if Darren was the jealous type, he'd just be another meal buddy. True, I acknowledged. Darren had his weird quirks, evidenced from the stack of conspiracy rags we got in the mail every week, but he didn't fret window shopping. You'd still better get a move on if you want to keep him around. Not your business, Lils. Alex twisted his lips in annoyance before nodding at the screen. What's up with the two guys anyway? I decided to let it go and turn back to my screen, gesturing to the photo. If I'm lucky, they're the detectives I need to avoid while on my next job. Oh, got one of our cases, huh? Alex leaped over the back of the couch and landed next to me. His scrawny body barely even shifted the cushions. Yep, I looked over at him. Apparently, some humans have been popping up with evidence of red cocaine in the area. You've been listening to a sample of Blood Herring by E.H. Drake. For the complete story, pick up your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you get your books. Audiobook coming soon.